guys, my name is Michaela and you're watching FunsizedStyle. Today's video is one that I have always wanted to film, but I never have, obviously. To be honest, I don't know why. Well, one reason I think is because I have a lot to say and it's going to be a very long video, and I know that long videos aren't everybody's favorite, and also I don't want this video to come across as controversial. I don't do controversial content on this channel. It's just not what I want my channel to be. I don't know, it's just been on my heart for a really long time, but especially recently for some reason, today's the day that I'm filming this video. And as you can tell by the title, I'm going to be talking about how society views disability. It's something that I'm very passionate about, and I think it's something that I will always be very passionate about. So without getting too far into the video reasoning and why I'm going to be talking about this, I want to explain just briefly what my disability is. So I have a disability called Osteogenesis Imperfecta. There are many different types of OI, and I have the second most severe type, which is type 3. And this condition causes my body not to produce enough effective collagen, so my body produces enough, but what collagen I have is not very good. Depending on the type of OI, the collagen is affected a bit differently. So for type 3, we produce enough, but what we have is defective, basically. So this has a variety of health effects. The main for type 3 is it obviously affects my height. I'm only 2 feet 7 inches tall, and it also causes my bones to be extremely fragile. I have experienced over 100 fractures throughout my lifetime, and just a variety of other health effects and health conditions that go along with that. I did an entire video about what osteogenesis imperfecta is and how it affects me personally. So if you'd like to go watch that, I highly suggest that you watch that video if you haven't seen it yet, because it will be a good starting point for you before you watch this video. I also apologize about my voice. I've gone to a lot of events recently and just been talking, and like some cool events where it involves like cheering and screaming, so my voice is kind of shot. I apologize about that, but that is a little bit about my disability. My mom and my twin brother both have Osteogenesis Imperfecta type 3, and no, we were not adopted. I want to talk about how society views disability, because growing up I realized how society views disability is very different from how I view it, and it's something, like I said, that I'm very passionate about. So I want to share with you guys my perspective on disability and how osteogenesis imperfecta has shaped my life. And it doesn't define who I am as a person. Who I am as a person is my character, my self-confidence, how I treat others, and none of that has anything to do with my disability. So those are the things that are most important and make me who I am. And it's not my disability, but my disability plays a part in every single thing I do in my daily life. It affects everything that I do every day. It affects everywhere I go every single day. I want to give you guys a little insight on what this disability means to me, because I have a very different perspective on life than a lot of people have. And really sitting down and talking about it in a very deep and lengthy manner is something I wanted to do for a while, and I just decided today's the day. So let's go ahead and get into it. Like I mentioned, please go ahead and watch the video, What is Osteogenesis Imperfecta? I'll put it in the iCard and I'll link it in the description below. But if you have any other questions about my disability, I also recommend that you check out the Osteogenesis Imperfecta Q&A video on my channel. It's over an hour long. I'm sure that video, or that those questions that you have, are answered in that video. If you have any additional questions after you've watched those two videos, definitely leave them in the comments below of this video and I will answer them. If I get a ton of questions, I'll do a part 2 Q&A, but if I only get a few, I'll answer them individually in the comments. So there is going to be a variety of perspectives that I'm going to be talking about this topic from, and so I'll introduce each of those as I talk about them. So the first aspect that I want to talk about is my personal perspective that I have on what I've learned and what I've experienced, how society views my disability and disabilities in general. But again, mainly in this video, I'll be talking about my disability, Osteogenesis Imperfecta, because of course that's the only experience that I have. But some of these categories I will be touching on other disabilities as well. I want to talk about this first from a personal perspective. Growing up, I realized that people view my life and my disability as a tragedy, and they view it as something that is so sad, and they don't understand how one person can go through so much, and they don't understand how I do it with a positive attitude and a smile on my face. They don't get it. It's something that I don't think you'd understand unless it was your daily life. Osteogenesis imperfecta is a genetic condition. So genetic as in just because nobody in your family has it doesn't mean that it can't happen. And I explained that in the What is Osteogenesis Imperfecta video that I did. But it's something that you're born with. It's not something that's contagious. It's not something that if you get in an accident, you'll experience. It's affected by collagen, which is the most abundant protein in the human body. And a lack of this causes many different health conditions and health effects. And this affects the human body in a variety of ways. It doesn't mean that my life is any less. It doesn't mean that my life isn't any less happy. It doesn't mean that my life isn't worth living. It doesn't mean that I can't have the same goals and aspirations that most people have for themselves or for their child. My positive outlook and attitude towards this comes from my faith, knowing that the Lord has a plan and a purpose for me. And I'm not saying that if you have a disability that the only way that you can be happy is through your faith. Your faith journey, if you have one, is between you and the Lord, and it's not for me to judge whether you have a relationship with Him or not, or believe in any kind of faith. But what I can tell you is that it's real, and it's what carries me through each and every day and gives me the joy that I have. And you guys know I often say the joy of the Lord is my strength, and it goes back to knowing that He has a plan and a purpose for me. And so for me personally, that's where I know that my disability is not a mistake. It is not a genetic fluke. It is not a mistake. I have this disability for a reason, and I wouldn't take it away if I could. And that's something that I tell people all the time when they say that they're sorry about all that I have to endure. And I do endure a lot, and I'm not going to sugarcoat that. I wouldn't take this disability away. I wouldn't change it if I could. The opportunities that I've had and the people that I've met through having my disability is something that I don't take for granted. I would not trade for anything in the world. One thing I do want to touch on before I get any further into that aspect of it is another thing that I also like to remind people is when I say that I wouldn't take it away or that I wouldn't change my circumstances, it's not that I don't believe in medical advances, and it's not that I don't wish for medical advances and treatment for my disability, the variety of health conditions that I have. And so I think that medical advances are also a gift from God, and He works through people to develop these things to improve our quality of life. When I say I don't want it to ever go away, or that I wouldn't change my circumstances, I mean that. But it's not that I don't hope for medical advances. It's not that I don't hope for new ways to be developed that would improve my quality of life. I welcome medical advances and medical research with open arms, because not only through the grace of God, but through medical advancements am I here today. I just want you guys to know that I am not blindsided by that perspective as well. You guys know my story of how I survived H1N1, and without the invention of the ventilator or a feeding tube or any of those things, I would not be here today. And yes, God performed a miracle on me, and He did those things through Himself and also through the tools of medical technology like the ventilator and feeding tube and the doctors and nurses. And I believe that he works through, not only does he perform miracles, but he also works through people to help us, help one another. And so I just want you to know that I'm not blindsided by that either. I think as a society, we tried to not downplay it, but we have this idea that in order to live a happy life, in order to live a successful life, in order to live a life that's worth living, we have to have a perfectly healthy body. Society says that if I'm not 6 feet tall or 5 feet tall or can walk, has this, this, and this, then I can be happy. Then I can be successful. Then people don't have to feel sorry for me. But until I have all these things, people don't understand why I'm a happy person. They don't understand how I can be so successful. They don't understand how I'm able to be independent if I don't have those A, B, and C things. And society says that, Michaela, unless you have a healthy body, unless you have the most ideal circumstances in your life, and unless you're 5 feet tall, can walk, can do A, B, and C independently without the help from others, then you can't live a happy life. Society says the only way that people should live a happy life is if they have a healthy body. That's not true. And I think that that's something that's been ingrained in people's mind for so long. They have to wait until they get better to be more successful, to be more productive, to be more impactful in people's lives, and to do more with their life. All those ideas are false. I don't have a perfectly normal body. I don't have a perfectly healthy body. If we decide who can do those things and be successful and live a happy life by having the most ideal circumstances, nobody would be a happy person. And there are very unhappy people in the world, but for the most part, I think people enjoy their life. It doesn't matter what life you have. We all deal with something, and my famous line is, the only difference between my circumstances and challenges and yours is that mine is just more visible than yours. Whether you'd like to believe it or not, every single person that watches this video is dealing with something. And if they aren't, they're going to at some point in their life. I'm just saying it how it is. That's just the way that life is. God didn't promise us a perfect life, but He promised us that He would carry us through everything that we walk through. And He would be with us every step of the way, and that He works for our good, and He is for us and not against us. But that doesn't mean we don't go through hard things. Even through those hard things, we can still have a positive perspective on life, and we can still believe that there's a plan and a purpose behind those hard things. I also want to be transparent about the fact that I have hard days too. That's something that I remind you guys of all the time. In my most recent health update, I talked about that and how I was having a really hard time. I believe that there's a plan and a purpose for these things that I'm experiencing, and I know that. I just wish that society would view disability in a positive light. Like I said, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't take away my disability if I could. I wouldn't take away the things that I've experienced in my past. I just wouldn't take it away. Because the people that I've met and the opportunities that I've had through having my disability is something that not a lot of people have. And the perspective that I have on life is very different from what a lot of people have. I think I value things a lot more. I value independence more. I value when I do have good health. I value the time in my life that I'm at right now, because when I was younger, things were harder, and things are getting easier now, because my bones are getting stronger as I get older. I value things more. I know I've talked about this a little bit. To tell you how society views disability is, before I was born, doctors had told my parents to have an abortion because my life wouldn't be valuable, because I would be a burden on society, and that I would just sit and waste away in my life, and that my life wouldn't be worth living. Obviously, my parents said absolutely not. Gave me and my twin brother the gift of life. When a medical professional decides whose life is valuable and whose isn't, I think that describes in a nutshell the priorities that our society has. If we decided who should live and who should die based on ideal circumstances, none of us would be here. Not a single human being would be here on this earth if that were the case, because we all deal with hard things. Maybe financial struggles, relationship struggles, faith, friendship struggles, struggles in your marriage, struggles with not knowing what to do in your life, not knowing what your purpose is. The list goes on and on and on and on of what you may deal with. But I promise you that there is way more joy to be found in this world than there are struggles. And I promise you that no matter what you're going through, your life is worth living. And I promise you my life is not sad. I promise you that my life is not pity. And it makes me sad when people feel sorry for me, because I don't like that. It makes me feel like they think my life is less. It makes me feel like they wish they wouldn't have my life. I wouldn't trade my life with anybody without a physical disability. And I know that that's hard to believe. These things that I'm going to say today and that I continue to say, some of you will never understand, and that's okay. But I at least want to get my perspective out there and show that, like, you can live a happy life and have a disability. Disability can be celebrated. Disability can be something happy. It can be something joyful, because I have this unique perspective on life, and I've had these really cool opportunities that nobody else has had. And I've met these really, really cool people that I would have never met because of my disability. And I've been able to reach people in ways that I would never be able to do if it wasn't for my disability. That's a little bit about my personal experience and what I know and what I believe about my circumstances and having a disability. It's a topic that's very hard to articulate because there are so many thoughts going through my mind, and I tried to take a few notes about like topics I was going to talk about within this video, but it's honestly just so hard because, like I said, it's very hard to articulate, because unless this is your everyday life, it's something that you can't really understand until it's your life, and it's challenging to articulate, and I hope I'm doing okay. There's a little bit about my personal perspective about how society views disability, and I'm so grateful also to live in a country where disability is somewhat celebrated, and I do have equal opportunity as those without a physical disability. Here in America, I have the right to go to work. I have the right to go to school, go to college, live wherever I want to. I have all of the rights that any other American citizen has. And in other countries, disability is viewed as even more of a disgrace. It's viewed as, there used to be institutions, and there used to be that way here in America. And things have changed, and things are getting better. Like I said, there are still other countries where disability is viewed as a curse. It's viewed as a burden. Even though things aren't perfect here in America for people with disabilities, it's definitely gotten better. Things are a lot different than they are in other countries in a good way. And so I also have a greater appreciation for this country because I know how lucky I am to be an American citizen and to also have been born here, and to realize what my life, how different my life would look like if I was born in another country. In some countries, people with disabilities are put in institutions, in orphanages, or like even executed. It's just, we still have a long way to go. But I hope by sharing my message that even a few perspectives can change. The next thing that I want to talk about is the next perspective of how society views disability is parent and family perspectives. Within the OI community specifically, so there's like an OI Foundation forum Facebook page where there's like 10,000 of us on there. You can it's like a private Facebook group, where if you or a family member has OI, you can join this group and ask questions, chat with people, get to meet people, that kind of thing. And you would not believe the amount of posts that I've seen say I really want kids, I don't want my child to have OI. That just breaks my heart. They think that OI is so bad that they don't want to have a child, or they think that their child's life would be miserable. And it makes me really sad because I don't know, it's just, this is very hard to articulate, but it's just like, genetics is a very big topic, and I don't know anything really about genetics other than like, even if you have a Y and you decide to have a child, there's not a 100% guarantee that your child will have a Y. Even if they do, like, so what? I promise you that they're gonna have a happy life. And you have to instill that in them and be their cheerleader. And again, it goes back to what I said of how society views that in order to have a happy life or a life worth living, you have to have a healthy body. You have to have A, B, and C. And if you don't have those things, then you're doing life wrong, or life isn't fair, or life is sad. That's just not the case. Like, I've seen so many Facebook posts on that forum of just saying, like, people saying, like, I really want kids, but I don't want my child to have a Y. It's sad. And to think that, like, you're trying to prevent something that I celebrate and view as a blessing, it's sad. And it's not like also though, it's not like, oh, I hope everyone has a Y. Like, that would be weird. I'm just saying, like, if it happens, it's not something to be sad about. It's not, there's a plan and a purpose and a reason for everything. No matter what you believe, if anything, faith-wise. Like, I promise you, there's a reason and there's a plan. And no matter if you try to prevent a Y or not, and you decide to have a child, your child is going to have some kind of other struggle that they deal with, no matter what. Whether they have a Y or not, the parents themselves deal with something. If they don't have a Y, or their parents' parents that have a Y deal with something, it doesn't matter. So trying to prevent a Y is not going to prevent another struggle in their life, because they're going to deal with something. And if it's not a Y, it'll be something else. And if it is a Y, it could be a Y and something else. There's other things that I deal with along with a Y. That has nothing to do with a Y. It just has to do with the fact that, like, these are the other things that I deal with in my life. If you're trying to start a family in the hopes of removing a Y from your life as much as possible, that's your choice. And I hope that people start to view, even within the community, people start to view a Y as something that's not so sad. But you're not going to remove all the struggles in your life or in your child's life, because that's life. Life isn't easy. Nobody in this world gets the easy way out. That's just how it is. And there's nothing that you can do about it. Another thing that I see a lot is within the OI community is if you're trying to do something to prevent a hardship, a potential hardship in someone's life, it's not going to work. Because if they don't have one thing, it's going to be another. That's just life. Like I said, every single person that's watching this video is dealing with something. I don't care who you are. I don't care how big or small it is. You're dealing with something. And no, not all of you have OI, obviously. That doesn't mean you don't deal with something difficult. OI is not the only difficult thing out there. OI is viewed, I feel like, even within some in the OI community as like the worst case scenario. Parents say, oh, I would never want my child to have OI, suffer the way I've suffered. And I hate the word suffer, because I feel like my life isn't full of suffering. I've gone through hard things. In the grand scheme of things, my life is not full of suffering. It's full of joy. It's full of awesome opportunities. It's full of amazing people and friends in my life. It's full of priceless opportunities. It's full of a unique perspective and strong faith. If you say, I would never want my child to have a life to suffer the way I've suffered, I just feel like that's so morally wrong. And eugenics is very real in this country, and not just with OI, or not just with a variety of ways. And when people think of eugenics, they think of like the Hitler days. And eugenics is far from gone. It's still very prevalent in this day and age with a lot of different things, and I don't want this video to get too controversial. No matter what your circumstances are in life, life is meant to be celebrated. And I think that that's something that parents need to learn. And it's hard. I'm not a parent, obviously, but I can't imagine seeing your child go through a fracture from an outside perspective. I can't imagine seeing your child go through so many surgeries. But I promise you there's a reason and there's a plan, and you and your child's life is meant to be celebrated. It just breaks my heart to see, even within the OI community, the countless amount of parents that say, I wouldn't wish OI on my child for anything. I don't want to have a child because I don't want my child to have OI. Those posts will never not make me sad. It's obviously not my life, so like, I don't need to worry about it. Again, this is something, a topic that I'm so passionate about that I wish people's perspective would change on, because if someone's challenge in their life isn't disability, it's something else, because everyone deals with something. That's what I wanted to say from a parenting perspective, but what I've learned and observed through that, people don't think that people with disabilities should have families, because again, how dare they pass along the disability to their child? Like, how cruel that must be. My family and I have been in several news media outlets and several documentaries, and you would not believe the amount of comments that my parents have gotten of like, how dare that mother have a child because of her disability. It just shows me like how, again, how society views disability as such a tragedy and such a horrific, cruel thing. For me, it's anything but that. It's something that, it's one of my biggest blessings. When you're telling a parent to not have a child because of a disability, you're saying that their life isn't valuable either. It's interesting how we feel as a society to judge whose life is more valuable when every single person that's judging those people have been given the gift of life. So why would they not want that for everyone else? I don't know. It's something that my parents have gotten a lot, and it's just, I don't suffer. My parents haven't allowed me to suffer by giving me the gift of life. My parents have allowed me to experience the joys of life and the plan and the purpose behind life. I thank them every day for giving me the gift of life, but in the same vein, it's like, that's what a parent does for their child. That's what a decent human being does, is give one another the gift of life. So that's what I've noticed from a parent family perspective. I would wish OI at my child for anything. I want to prevent OI. Like, I don't want my child to suffer. OI is so terrible. I would not want my child to experience the things that I did. And it's just interesting. And I almost feel like maybe it's because more and more people are like using social media. I just feel like I see it more and more. I don't want to have a child at all because I don't want them to have OI. It's sad. This section is probably the most difficult for me to articulate because I'm not a parent. For me, the reasoning behind why I don't want to become a parent has nothing to do with me thinking my disability is bad or, whatever. I've made a video about why I don't want to have kids, but it has nothing to do with thinking my disability is bad or a disgrace or it's suffering, because it's not. Mine's a whole nother reason. It's probably the most difficult one for me to articulate for you guys, but I just hope that maybe even one parent or parent-to-be of a child with OI will see this video, because I promise you that your child is loved and your child has a plan and a purpose and a reason to be here, and there's a reason that your child has OI, and maybe it's to teach you something. And I don't know, but what I do know is even within families of OI, there's still a lot to be learned, even within their own experiences. That is my discussion on family and parenting perspective and what I've observed of how disability is viewed. The next thing that I wanted to touch on is how businesses view disability. Here in America, we have the Americans with Disabilities Act, so every business has to legally be wheelchair accessible. Not just wheelchair accessible, but in a variety of ways. So businesses view disability as a burden. They view it as an expense. I talked about this in my Osteogenesis Imperfecta Q&A. They view us as a burden and an expense, and actually, I'm not sure what video you'll see first, but I recently had an experience of a business not being wheelchair accessible. It was at this event that I wanted to go to with friends, and my friends made it happen, but the manager of the restaurant that had to help carry my wheelchair down the stairs, which there's a little spoiler alert for you of that story time, did not say a word to me. He did not say, "I'm sorry." He did not say, "We will take care of this." He did not say, "We will build a ramp." He didn't say a word to me. And the reason that he was so afraid, I think, to say anything to me was because he was afraid that I'm going to sue him. And I'm not. I'm not that kind of person. I just don't do that. He viewed me as a burden because now he's scared that I'm going to take legal action. He's got nothing to be scared of. For one, I'm 2 feet 7 inches tall. I can't really do much damage. And second of all, I'm just not going to do that. It's not worth it. It's not worth the stress, the time. It's stupid. For him to not even talk to me because he was so afraid of that, it just shows you he viewed my time there as a burden and a potential expense. And if he was accessible, if the establishment was accessible in the first place, you wouldn't have to worry about those potential things happening at all, because he's lucky that I'm not that kind of person. Legally, I do have the right to do those things, but I'm not going to because I don't want to. It's not worth my time, my energy. It's just not worth it. In life, you have to pick and choose your battles. Me going after businesses that are not accessible is not worth my time, but businesses don't realize that, like, people with disabilities go out and live normal, productive lives. By not having access for us to get in, you're losing money, you're losing other potential customers, because if I really, really like your restaurant, I'm gonna tell my friends and family to come visit your restaurant because your food is so good. Or I really, really like what you have to offer at your store, so I'm gonna tell my friends and family about it, so there's more customers. If I can't get into your restaurant or into your store, I'm not going to tell my friends and family about it. I am going to tell them about it, but I'm going to tell them how terrible they are. And I'm going to tell them not to go there. I'm going to tell them not to support them, probably, maybe. It depends on the situation. Again, in life you have to pick and choose your battles, but not only are you losing me and other people with disabilities as customers, but you're losing potential customers. So you're losing money in a sense. It just does not take much to make a place accessible. It really, really does not. Things have gotten better, especially with new businesses. Obviously, like, most of them are accessible, but businesses that have been around for a while, or businesses that are really, really, really old, they feel like they are exempt. They feel like it doesn't matter, and it matters. It still matters. I can't wait to share with you guys the story time, because it is one of the most iconic disability access horror stories that I've ever experienced in my life. But the way that my friends handled it was so amazing. It was the most horrific thing I've ever experienced. Not most horrific thing I've ever experienced, but disability access-wise and being able to get into the establishment. I went to the most extreme measures that I've ever went to be able to participate in this event, because I wanted to do this so badly. And I have the right to do that because my other friends were there, so I had a right to be there too. I was invited to this event. I want businesses to know that, like, I know how you view people with disabilities, and it's nothing that can't be resolved. It's a really easy fix. Not all businesses are like that, but a lot of them are. I also want to talk about how employers view people with disabilities. A lot of times for employers, disability is also viewed as a burden, as an expense. So I've gone into several interviews, and I go in, and you just know they're like, oh my gosh, she's in a wheelchair, she's incapacitated, she's in a wheelchair, she can't do anything. Like, I just know that that's their automatic thought. Employers think of, like, oh my gosh, we're gonna have to spend all this money on accommodations and this and that, when they don't even know or realize how independent I am and how many abilities I have. So instead of thinking of it as, what could I bring to this company or this organization, they view it as I'm taking something away from them. As I'm taking away their time, I'm taking away their energy, I'm taking away their money. And that's not any of those things. I'm there to get a job just like anybody else that's there for an interview. And I want to contribute to society just as much, if not more, than any other person that came to interview. And I'm here because I want to work for your company. I'm here because I want to bring something to the table to your company. And employers don't see it that way. They see me and they see a liability, they see potential expenses, they see a potential burden, and they don't see what I could bring to the company. They don't see what an asset I could be to the company, and they don't see me like any other employee or potential employee. They see me as separate. Again, it's not an area where disability is celebrated or accepted. And I think finding a job is one of the biggest challenges that people with disabilities still face today. It's not that there aren't jobs out there. The job market is booming. It's that people are still stuck in the mindset of viewing us as a liability, an expense, a burden, and when in reality we just want equal opportunity. And I'm not saying that employers should just hire people with disabilities because they have a disability. If they're not the right fit because of what's on their resume for the job, that's one thing. But I can tell you from my experience and from other friends I've talked to, that's not the case. Oftentimes they just see the chair and they think, oh my gosh, without even getting the time to know us, taking the time to get to know us. I also want to say that, like, again, it's not because there aren't jobs. There are. It's just people's brains are still stuck in the 1980s. Businesses out there, it does not take much to make your dang business accessible. A ramp, automatic door, wide aisles, like, it doesn't take much, and it could do a lot for your business, a lot of good. This next section is going to be a little bit short. I kind of debated whether to do a story time on this. This happened several years ago when I graduated high school. I had to basically fight for everything I needed in school as far as accommodation, and I went to a public school, so it wasn't like I went to a private school. It wasn't like that. I went to a public school where, like, they have to follow the ADAs, and I still had to fight for so much accommodation wise, and I had to fight for so much up until the right to graduate. That is something, and mind you, I graduated in like the top 25 or 50 in my class of 250, and I was in 2 National Honor Societies. I graduated with high honors, and I was almost denied the right to graduate. This is just one aspect of how disabilities are still valued in schools. There's even been field trips that I couldn't go on because the place isn't accessible. I had to fight for literally everything in schools, and I know that there are so many other students, whether they're in K through 12 or in college, that have to fight for so much and for accommodations because schools, again, don't want to spend the money, don't want to take the time. It's so much easier to accept a student without a disability than with a disability. Schools is another thing where disability is viewed as an expense, as a burden. It shouldn't be that way. And I'm also not making this video to say, like, look at how sad this is that this is still happening. And yes, it is sad, but at the same time, I'm just telling you the truth, and I'm telling you how it is. And if you have a physical disability, you just have to learn to fight for yourself. You have to learn to advocate, and you have to know your rights, and it's just so important. I know that there are so many other students with physical disabilities in school that face so many challenges and have to fight for everything to get an education just like everyone else. And for Osteogenesis Imperfecta, it does not affect the learning ability. It does not affect me cognitively in any way. People see my size and they think cognitively impaired, and that is not the case. Oftentimes in these settings that I've talked about, they make assumptions, and that causes a lot of problems. They see my size and they see that I use a wheelchair, and so they just assume that I'm also cognitively impaired, which is not the case. You can have a learning disability and a physical disability, or you can have one or the other. It does not always go hand in hand. And so that's another common misconception about disability. Schools is a tricky thing to articulate because it depends on the district, it depends on what your needs are and everything, but I can do that story time if you want about how I was almost denied the right to graduate. I've debated publicly saying it, but I have shared it with so many people at this time, or at this point, that I think it is worth sharing so that another student at the high school that I went to never has to experience anything like that again, or any other high school around the nation. Schools is definitely something where disability is still viewed as a burden and as an expense. The next thing that I want to talk about of how society views disability is within the media. So within the media, I also feel like disability is viewed as a tragedy and as a sadness. And within some publications that I've been in, the headlines that they choose to use, it's just horrifying. I was featured on the Daily Mail, and they referred to me as a brittle bone vlogger. I am apparently my name is not Michaela Daybert. Apparently I'm not a human being. I'm a brittle bone vlogger. It's weird, and like I was on Little Things and it said like bullied girl something to internet sensation, and it's weird. And I know it's like all about the headlines and stuff, but it's just like still make it sound like I suffer. And sometimes news media will even say like has suffered more than 100 fractures. My life is not full of suffering. Even like within other disabilities as well, like when somebody with a disability gets invited to prom, it's on national news, and it shouldn't be that way, because not that that's not something awesome, but people don't think it's any less awesome if somebody without a physical disability gets invited to prom. People think that when these things happen to us, it's special, and it's when in reality we're just human beings, just like anybody else without a physical disability. I just think it's really interesting how the media portrays disability, and especially like when they report on people with disabilities, but with certain stories. But I definitely think that it's getting better. I was in a local publication called Great Lakes Bay Magazine, and they did a beautiful job. It's still one of my favorite publications that I've been in. I was in my university's magazine, and they did a beautiful job. And then I also was featured in Pop Sugar Beauty, in a Pop Sugar Beauty article, and they did a fabulous job. So I definitely think that the media representation towards people with disabilities is getting better, and people are celebrating it more, but like not in like a weird way, and they're just like talking about us like we're human beings, which we are. But I also want to say, like, you guys know one of my favorite, the way I describe myself in my Instagram bio is changing the face of beauty. In the media, there is still so much work to be done as far as who is portrayed in the media industry, and television, movies, commercials, advertisements, print advertisements, and there's definitely been big strides being made as far as kids, young adults, men and women with physical disabilities being featured in these things. But I also feel like part of it is there's only certain disabilities that are featured in these things. There are so many different types of disabilities out there, and I still feel like even though progress is being made, there are still so many disabilities that are not showcased. That's when you have true inclusion, is you include people of many different types of disabilities, and inclusion is where you include people with a physical disability or a disability without and along with somebody without a disability, integrating the two together. That's inclusion. I just think it's interesting how society views disability. One of the last sections that I want to talk about in how society views disability is within the healthcare industries. I visited many doctors throughout my lifetime, probably hundreds, maybe not quite that many, but a lot. And I almost feel like I said in the beginning, it's not that because I enjoy the life that I live and enjoy the circumstances that I have and enjoy the life that I live, it's not that I don't welcome medical advancements with open arms. I hope and pray every day that there are advancements being made, but unfortunately with OI there's just not a lot of advancements being made. They're so focused on bisphosphonate and all of these things that are not effective, because OI is not a bone density condition. It is a connective tissue disorder, and until we start doing like stem cell research or actually trying to inject effective collagen into the body, these bisphosphonates are not effective, and I don't support them. What's great about America is that we have the right to make our own healthcare decisions, but that's just one aspect of it. And like, it's not that I don't welcome medical advancements with open arms. Without medical technology and advancement, I would not be here today. I also feel like there are some healthcare professionals that view disability in a way of, how can I fix you? How can I fix every little thing that's wrong with you? I've often tried to get told to get fitted for braces and like orthotic shoes so that my foot is more straight. Like, I get it, like that's their job. My thing is, if you have something that's not affecting your quality of life, what's wrong? I've been told so many times to get fitted for orthotic shoes when I was young, and different braces and this and that. The healthcare industry is almost like, for people with disabilities, like, how can I fix every little thing that's wrong with you? Whether that's, even if it's like cosmetically, like orthotic shoes, like, okay, so my foot isn't perfectly straight, and healthcare views like as something wrong with me. Like, if my foot is not perfectly straight, then I'm going to be less confident, then I'm going to be bummed about that people are going to look at my foot and see that it's not straight. I don't care whether my foot goes so many degrees instead of this many degrees. I don't care. The way that I look at healthcare is, I do things that are medically necessary to improve my quality of life, to improve my health in a way that helps me live longer and happier and healthier. I don't view healthcare as needing to fix every nook and cranny of every curve in my body. My feet aren't perfectly straight. I don't need to wear orthotic shoes. I'm not saying that you shouldn't get orthotic shoes for your kid. But even if you're I'm not saying that orthotic shoes are bad, but everyone views healthcare differently, and just know that there's not always a need to fix every little nook and cranny and every little curve in your child if it's not affecting them medically, or if it's not inhibiting on their quality of life. Then if it's not broke, why fix it? kind of thing. And I just feel like I'm really, really lucky because especially the past like 3 years, I really had a healthcare team that they don't push me into doing anything that I don't want to do, or that their focus is on quality of life and like what I feel, what is important to me. And like, for example, for me, orthotic shoes are not important. Just examples like that. I feel like the healthcare industry views disability as like something wrong with us. How can we fix you? Again, I'm not saying that I don't welcome medical advancements and those things. I'm just saying that I think it's important for healthcare professionals to look at disability as how can I help my patient live the most happy quality of life that they can while having this disability. Not necessarily looking at from a perspective of how can I fix you, because not everything in my life needs to be fixed. I personally, in my lifetime, I don't see a cure being made for OI, but if there is, that God has used these people to create those things. And those are just some of the ways that I think society views disability and how those perspectives can change. People with disabilities are not and should not, if they do, expect anything more of society. Like, should not expect anything special, but like, these are the things that we do experience should be looked at from a different perspective, because people with disabilities are just people that want to live life in the productive, most successful, happy way, just like people without a physical disability. So I know this video was kind of all over the place. I hope I touched on things that were important. If you learned something from this video, let me know in the comments below. And I guess that's it. I know this video was all over the place, but if there's anything that I missed out on, let me know. But I just hope that you realize that, like, please don't ever feel sorry for me. It's just not something that I like, and it's not necessary. There's nothing for me to feel sorry, for you to feel sorry for me for, because again, my life is, and everyone's life is meant to be celebrated no matter what the circumstances. And the only difference between my circumstances and maybe yours is that mine is just more visible than yours.